to the grand finals of AoE4 Pro League. $20,000 on the line in this 3v3 team game tournament, and we have probably the best two teams in the tournament right now, with Recon, the Muslim, and the Beastie Cutie and the Straboras versus Vortex, Lucifron, and the Mista in the grand finals. Absolute juggernauts when it comes to individual skill, and that translated in the team game battlefield as well.
Yeah, we've got ourselves a bit of a mirror match today, and spawning in down on the south side, we've got Recon's team. Recon spawning in on the pocket, playing the French up towards his northern flank. Playing on the Mongols, we've got Beastie QT, and then down towards the western side, we've got the Muslim on the Rus. Who's on the opposite side of the map, Lidakor?
In the pocket, we will have Vortex playing as the Rus in green. To the left of him, Lucifron playing as the teal French. And on the right side, we are going to have the Mista playing as the Mongols in purple. So the first thing that we'll have to note is that the two Mongol players are on the same side. And the other is that you will have a French pocket for Recon's team and a French flank for Lucifron's team. So you see the difference in the two approaches. Recon's team wants to have their melee cavalry civilization in the pocket, whereas on the other side, Vortex's team prefers to have the Rus player that's going for the fast castle being in the safer central position.
Yeah, this is very curious. Typically, at least from what I've seen, we've seen a lot of French pockets, and we'll see them go for a relatively early double TC, about 9 or 10 minutes, something like that. But yeah, this game, it doesn't seem like we're going to be spotting that out. We're going to obviously have the pocket player Vortex here on the Rus. Do you think that's a somewhat standard thing that we would see, or not really?
Ooh, I think it's more about the Rus here. It's not necessarily about Vortex being the pocket player himself. It's more about having the Rus being positioned in between the two players. I can see that being a thing, especially if you're afraid of Mongol tower rushes hurting your Rus player, because in this civilization matchup, your most important civilization is most likely the Rus. You really need to make sure that he's able to get the good horse archer numbers, because without that, you're going to have a very difficult time. Obviously, there is a drawback of that, and that is going to be that the French player's gold mine is very exposed. This is especially troublesome if the French player is up against the Mongols, which is not the case for this game. But as you see, Lucifron's gold mine is heavily exposed here to any kind of aggression, so that's the trade-off that you're taking. Your Rus player is going to be safer, but your French player has a much harder time accessing gold once aggression comes in.
Yeah, I would expect that we might even see an outpost or two up on this gold mine from him. Very fortunately, though, the Mista has spawned on the same side as the Mongols. Because I tell you what, I feel like if the Muslim had spawned on the same side as Mista, then he might be in for a bit of a hard time. As you mentioned before this game started, typically what we see is Mista actually goes for a bit of a 1v1 within the 3v3. So he'll try and isolate his respective flank. And in this game, his flank is going to be Beastie playing the Mongols. So he's probably going to be in a relatively fair matchup, I'd say, there. But yeah, the difficult spot for the Muslim would be that if he was up against that Mongol pressure. But it doesn't seem like it will be that case or that way today. And instead, just going to be going up against the French player to the north of his position.
Mista is going for an early pasture over here. This is something that he often does. And he does have a killer fast castle build. I'm curious to see if he's going to pop that. He's currently free on gold. Everyone else on the sheep. Usually when he does that build, his Ovu is closer to his town center, so his pasture is going to be buffed by the Ovu. It's not the case over here, but still, early pasture is a sign that he's not going to go for a ton of early aggression. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lucifron's got the School of Cavalry coming in. And on the opposing side, of course, School of Cavalry as well from Recon. No surprise on that department.
Yes, I remember, I think there's only been one game I've ever seen where a player didn't go the School of Cavalry on a land map, and it was Viper. And he went to Chamber of Commerce, and he started trading at like 5 minutes. I'm like, what is going on here? This is absolutely wild. I think actually we've seen it in a couple of team games now that I think about it. I remember early on in the Pro League, we did actually see the Chamber of Commerce coming out quite early. But yeah, no surprises here this late stage in the tournament where players or teams are undefeated. So these two teams, obviously, we've got Beastie and the Straboras. They're undefeated, as well as their opponents, Lidakor.
Exactly. Looking at the bounties real quickly, which is one of the most important factors early game, the Muslim is sitting at 290, and Vortex, on the other hand, sitting at 450. So Vortex has a massive head start when it comes to collecting bounty.
Yeah, that is a big head start, and he's going to be getting up to the second age pretty quickly here as well. You can see that compared to his opponent, the Muslim, on the respective Rus player, he's ahead by a mile. It looks like he's up by about 30 seconds in advance, so a significant difference between those two players.
Especially if you consider the fact that that's going to translate into a Castle Age difference and even a difference in professional scouts. You already see that being halfway done for Vortex. Meanwhile, on the other side, curious to see how Mista's resource bank is looking, but it looks like he's not going to have the resources for a straight fast castle over here, so it's probably going to be more about a horseman play, trying to deny the hunt of the opponent, something that he did quite often, especially if you consider the fact that Recon might also go for professional scouts here.
Yeah. Now, one of the things to also note is that with professional scouts, obviously we've got a French player on the team. We've got the Rus player on both of the teams. Could we potentially see only one player on these teams go for professional scouts?
It's a possibility, because that one player could ferry in deer to all of his teammates if needed, and especially if you only have the Rus player going for professional scouts, that leaves the French player open to start off with night production, and you could have a nice little advantage in night numbers. It's basically quite a significant drawback to go for pro scouts with the French, because you will be sacrificing a lot of knights, and given how exposed Lucifron's gold mine is, for example, that could be fatal.
Yeah, and one of the things to note is that Lucifron has actually gone for professional scouts here, in addition to his teammate. So Vortex has also gone for professional scouts, but looking on the opposite side of the map. So we've got professional scouts coming out at this point in time for Demuslim, but have a look towards Recon's base. He's got the mill that's sitting there, but he is nowhere near professional scouts at all.
Indeed, he's dropping the mill so that he can have some access to berries because he's running low on carcasses. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Muslim ferrying in some deer to him. And on the other side, the Mista's gonna play really aggressive over here. He's got a stable up, he's got a range coming in, and he's going for the horseman, something that he loves to do. Beastie, on the other hand, opening up with the Mangadai, not something that you see every day.
Yeah, and this is going to get spotted out by Mister. He's shadowing them on the way back, so he knows that they are coming. They're heading down, so I would expect that he looks to pick those ones up before they get through. But there's not a lot of damage that can really be done here, with the exception of a few villagers that are out towards that gold mine on the back flank. So we'll have to wait and see whether Beastie looks to apply pressure to that point, or whether he looks to sort of find another angle to go for.
Exactly. Beastie is on 4 Mangadai now, and there's a tower coming in, most likely because a villager is moving forward for Beastie. Knights are also coming in for Recon. It looks like Mista is going to be facing a double team here early on, but he's got the forces to repel this. Horseman already out, and the Mangadai are just about to join the party.
Yeah, Mangadai now getting chased away. We see that speed arrow coming off up towards the north here, as Mista tries his best to get on top of those Mangadai. Not going to have a lot of luck, and now those Knights going to be coming into screen, managing to take out one of those horsemen, and unfortunately, it looks like for Mista, he's going to have to fall back because there are way too many forces for him to deal with at this point in the game.
Exactly, doesn't have a good answer to the Knights right now. The Mangadai will do decently against them, but they still soak up a lot of arrow fire, and he's gonna be forced off from that gold mine, and the tower is also going to be delayed, so now adding additional Mangadai is gonna be troublesome because it doesn't have the gold to work with.
Yeah,
now, of course...
Ooh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I just wanted to say that, of course, right now he's absorbing damage from 2 players, so the other side of the map is going to be interesting to look at because currently he's being 2v1.
Beautiful age up time right there from Vortex, hitting the castle age before 8 minutes. And that's your benchmark. If you can get up at 8 minutes, you're doing pretty well. And it definitely seems to be a nice age up time there for Vortex. I'll be curious to see how far along Demuslim is up to the next age. He does have, how many villages is that? About 11 or 10 villages on that landmark. Abbey of the Trinity going up for him behind this. But back towards the base of Mister, his stable is under siege. Now, obviously, he's playing as the Mongols. He could pick this one up and he could move it. But the consequence of doing so would be that it may potentially just die to the Mangadai. Those things, they do a lot of damage, especially once you packed up a building. Have you seen how fast they'll shred through those buildings once they're on the move?
Yeah, the buildings, when they're on the move, they are very fragile. I've seen pastures running away, and the pastures just die in 5 seconds to any kind of units, really. Horsemen, now in decent numbers out in front of the Mangadai of Mista, and we're seeing some horse archers appear on the battlefield because, as we discussed, Vortex had a great bounty count, so he was able to get to Castle Age faster than the Muslim, already collecting relics with the first couple of warrior monks.
Yeah, he's already out and about onto the map. Plenty of archery ranges coming down. He's putting the 4th one down right now. His economy is looking really good. 15 villages on wood, 15 villages on food, so balancing it out between the 2 resources. And we'll take a look over at Muslim's perspective. I want to see exactly what he's up to. So he's doing the same thing, balancing out the villagers, but getting under a little bit of pressure towards the front of his base. Lucifron beginning to attack villagers. Actually going to be able to take out a villager towards the wood line. Second villager might potentially go down here as well. Indeed it does. So already a little bit of an economic advantage coming out for Beastie and the Strelboros. Actually, for their opponents, rather.
And if you think about it, this also forces the Muslim to clean up those knights first. So right now he's stuck in his base with the horse archers, and that gives a window for Mista and Vortex to potentially push Beastie, or, as it seems, maybe head straight towards the food eco of Recon, which is not spectacular by any means, mostly consisting of only berry villagers.
Yeah, it's really important to note that we are, having a look now at this this fight that's unfolding down towards the base of, who have we got down here? It's Recon in the blue. But one of the things I just wanted to draw your attention to, one of the comments that I saw a lot on my YouTube comments when I was casting team games, is that people often will get confused with all the colors that are going around. So I want to remind everybody there who's watching this and might get a little bit confused. Think of your three primary colors. It's your three primary colors. You've got blue, red, and yellow, and they're going up against the three non-primary colors, teal, green, and purple. So that's the best way to think about it. So second town center going to be going up here for Recon as well.
He is playing a very, very eco-heavy approach over here, being harassed by Mista. He has to be careful not to get those Mangadai surrounded by knights though, but once again he's delaying that town center quite a bit, getting some villager picks. Not exactly sure what to think about that stone wall section for Recon. If he had some longbowmen, that would be great, because you could place them on top of that wall. But for a knight player, that wall seems a little odd. Yeah,
I'm very curious. What was this wall? What is this wall all about? I want to know. I want to ask him. I'm going to contact him after the game and be like, hey, what was that wall about? This is the most curious wall I've ever seen. Maybe to get the villagers up there, potentially? Is that it?
Possible. It's actually a great idea. I didn't even think about that. And since the horsemen wouldn't be able to jump on them and the Mangadai would do way less damage, that would actually be a very clever idea, but I've never seen that being done before.
Who knows? Maybe he just invented a brand new meta. I'm curious to know now. But yeah, we're going to have to find that out. But we'll do a little bit of a stock take. I'm curious to know. We've got 3 relics in the Abbey of the Trinity for Muslim. Doesn't look like he's dropped down a monastery at this point in time. Back towards the base of his opponent, though, Vortex. He's got the 3 relics as well. Still no monastery up for him yet either. So players are even, despite Muslim getting up a little bit later than his Rus counterpart.
Indeed, the Muslim has been harassed by the Knights of Lucifron as well quite a bit. And as things stand, horse archer numbers seem to be fairly even. Now we're seeing Lancers appear on the field for both Mongol players. Lancer Mangadai, it is a very expensive but very lethal combination. A unit composition that's capable of beating mass horse archers even. Yeah,
it's one of the only compositions that can actually beat it. And we've seen it in numerous 1v1s. It's a composition that I absolutely love to see. So yeah, Lancer Mangadai, it is a beautiful composition. Very, very fast. Obviously supported there by the Khan. It really helps out. But back towards the base of Muslim here, he's able to pick up a couple of these Royal Knights. Lucifron yet to reach the Castle Age. Just as I say that, he touches up or hits up to the Castle Age. So he's looking to get into the 3rd Age and potentially get those veterancy upgrades.
Speaking of veterancy, Recon is the only player still in Feudal Age, so he's going to have those Feudal Age Knights there. And Vortex trying to bring back a relic on the right side will be intercepted by the attacking forces of Beastie and Recon. Now, the base of Mista is under a lot of pressure. For now, he's patiently waiting for reinforcements before he fights this.
Yeah, gonna lose a couple villagers, unfortunately for him. But yeah, it does look like this is quite a significant force here. So I guess Mista's not really used to getting double teamed over on his side, is he? Normally he's typically the aggressor in this situation. So it's definitely going to be a weird spot for him. 15 villagers inside the town center. He's going to be looking to hold on right now as the fight begins under the town center. The Royal Knights are doing their best to try and tap away. Keep in mind that I think they actually get the Saint's Blessing, or it might be the Saint's Curse. I'm not sure exactly. There was a little bit of a debuff on them there, but now it looks like he's going to be able to hold on and begin pushing back the Knights of Recon. And in addition to that, the Lancers as well as the Mangadai are going to be falling back. So Mista doing a great job. At the same time, down towards the south, we've got another battle that's happening, Lytical.
Massive battle indeed. Horse archers will trade shots over here, as now we have Castle Age Knights for Lucifron here, and Recon doesn't have any forces nearby. So at this point, it looks like both Mista and Recon is going to take quite considerable damage, and those Steel Knights are doing an exceptional job soaking up the arrow fire from the Muslim Force Archers.
Now, one thing I'm curious to know is what Lucifron's actually gone up to the 3rd age with, because obviously going with the Royal Knights, he's got the Veterans status out. If he does look to go with the Royal Institute, which he hasn't, he's actually gone with the Guildhall. If he had, he would have been able to get that Royal Bloodline technology.
Once we have a bit of a moment to catch up here with all the action slowing down, I actually want to ask you if that's the right decision, because to me in these team games so far, it really felt like that Royal Bloodlines is such a big power spike in Castle Age that I would have thought that that's probably the better choice. Obviously, it depends on how aggressive you're playing. If you can avoid fighting with your Knights, Guildhall can pay off really fast as well. So I'm curious to see, or curious to hear your opinion about that matter.
Yeah, I think it depends, is the bottom line. It can be good in some situations, but I definitely feel like in team games especially, it is incredibly strong. And I feel like if you don't go for it, you're almost making a little bit of a mistake, unless you're planning for the late game. But speaking of the late game, it looks like right now that Beastie not going to be making it to the late game, because he is getting absolutely swamped here. We've got triple non-primary colors in his base. He is obviously playing the red. He's waiting for those reinforcements, but he's being taken out. He's got the red lancers underneath the town center, and now we've got the knights that are following through, and this is just a terrible situation, because one of the #1 rules of team games is never fight without your allies, and that's exactly what Beastie has been forced to do. Obviously, when he's got 3 enemies in his base, there's not much he can do, but it's meant that he's had to fight by himself, and as a consequence, he's lost all of his military, so now only 2 armies remain for the Beastie and the Strelbora's team.
And Recon is still in Feudal Age, so his knights will be much weaker than the ones from Lucifron. And if you think about it, we still have 3 armies inside the base of Beastie right now. Reinforcements are coming in from both sides, and even the Horse Archer numbers seem to be better than Vortix compared to the Muslim right now.
Yeah, the Muslim having a bit of a tough time right now. There's just so many units screening against his army. He's having such a difficult time. You can see them just getting chased away. He's forced to run back, unable to put any DPS out at all on these knights as they try their best to force them out. But behind this, we've just got villagers that are being slaughtered in the base of Beastie, and he's having a terrible time on this flank here. And it's really not looking good for them at this point.
Exactly, and that's what you want to do against the Mongols player in here. Run into the base, you will be taking a lot of town center and tower fire, but ultimately, you just detach a couple of knights from your army, and you just kill a couple of villagers with them, because you know exactly that killing villagers will result in them having a harder time reinforcing their army. Speaking of which, Beast's entire economy is just an absolute train wreck right now. He's probably down to like 10 villagers at this point.
Yeah, currently sitting on 18 villages right now, and he's got no military whatsoever, so he is quite literally dead. I mean, he's got a couple pastures, but they can't do a whole lot against lancers, can they?
They cannot, for sure. He's at 14 population, and now it's a 2 versus 3. Beastie surrenders, and with that, a beautiful counterattack from Lucifron's team wins the game for them.
Yeah, really, really well played by Lucifron's team. I'm trying to think of the most pivotal moment, and I think it's got to be when the 2 players from Beastie's team went up and attacked the Mister, and he repelled them as an individual. He repelled 2 forces. He repelled, I think it was Recon and Beastie both attacking him at the same time. And I think that was really what turned the game, because a lot of units were lost, and it was a big swing.
I agree with that. The other thing that we could highlight is that the French player Recon went for a 2 town center build, which is something that can pay off really fast. But that early investment meant that his castle age was delayed very heavily. So obviously his army numbers were lower and the quality of his army was much lower. If you compare the military graphs for both Lucifron and Recon, Lucifron was always adding knight numbers simply because he was investing all of his resources into army and then castle age instead of making a 2nd town center and getting some eco advantage there.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I think in team games it can be so cutthroat. Going for that 2nd town center, it can really hurt you. But yeah, it's great to see the difference between knight numbers for that 2nd town center. Well, we might wrap this video up here. If you're watching this one on YouTube, I will bid you guys adieu. Make sure you check out Lidical. I'm going to leave a link in the description over towards his YouTube page. You can catch more content like the Pro League on his channel. So make sure you go say good day. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.